Okay, let's unpack this Rocket Lab situation. Their stock has been on a real tear, hasn't it?
It really has, up nearly 500% in the last year.
Yeah, pushing their market cap over $1 billion.
Yeah.
You kind of have to wonder what's actually driving that.
Exactly, and that's what we're digging into today. There's some pretty fascinating developments happening.
Like what specifically?
Well, mainly their planned acquisition of a German company, Mynaric, specialists in laser comms. And also the progress they're making with their Neutron rocket, their bigger one.
Right, the medium lift rocket.
Yeah. So the goal here is to understand how these things could, really shift things for Rocket Lab and maybe for the whole space industry too.
And to get a handle on this,
Mhm.
we've been looking at a really good analysis from the YouTube channel Tree Helen.
Mm-hmm.
The host over there has apparently been following Rocket Lab since, 2021. So a good long-term view.
Yeah, it provides solid context. So maybe start with Rocket Lab's strengths right now. What makes them stand out?
Well, I think the big thing is their whole end-to-end service model. It's quite different from, say, SpaceX.
How so? What does end-to-end actually mean in this context?
Well, okay, SpaceX is mostly focused on the launch itself, right? Getting your stuff...
Like transport provider, essentially.
Exactly. Rocket Lab, though, they can potentially handle the whole process, like designing the satellite, building it. They even have 4 of their own satellite platforms now.
Oh, wow. 4 platforms.
Yeah. Then they launch it, and they can even handle the data side of things afterwards.
Okay, so that's a much broader scope. Can you give, an example?
Sure. Let's say a pharma company needs to do some microgravity research.
Okay.
They could go to Rocket Lab, and Rocket Lab could potentially build a custom satellite for that specific experiment, launch it on Electron, manage it in orbit, get the data, and maybe even bring the samples back.
Right, a complete package deal.
Yeah. Whereas with SpaceX, that pharma company would probably need to have their satellite already built and ready to go.
Oh,
SpaceX provides the ride.
gotcha. So Rocket Lab captures more of the value chain for certain customers. Makes sense.
It builds stickier relationships, too, you'd imagine. It's not just about the lowest launch price.
Definitely. Anything else notable about their current operations?
Well, their launch frequency is pretty impressive. Their Electron rocket is small, only about 300 kilos to orbit.
Right, the small sat launcher.
But they actually had the second highest number of launches globally last year.
Yeah.
Only SpaceX did more.
That's remarkable, really. High cadence.
And worth remembering, they're publicly listed, went public via a SPAC back in 2021.
Right, so investors can actually, buy into the company, which isn't true for all space players.
Exactly. Okay, so let's pivot to the future stuff. This Mynaric acquisition sounds important. Who are they?
Mynaric. They're a German company founded back in 2009, based near Munich.
Okay.
And their whole thing is laser communication technology, specifically for satellite-to-satellite links.
So not talking back to Earth, but satellites talking to each other.
Precisely. Enabling those big constellations to relay data quickly, securely, with low latency, high bandwidth too. That's their niche.
Okay, I see where this is going. This lets Rocket Lab build their own constellation, potentially.
That seems to be the strategic implication, yes. We don't know the exact details yet, like if it's for LEO, internet, or something else.
But the capability is the key thing.
Absolutely. And think about the business model impact. Owning a constellation gives you recurring revenue.
Right, like a subscription, not just one-off launch fees.
Exactly. It's more like, collecting rent versus just selling the house. Peter Beck, Rocket Lab's CEO, has talked about wanting to be involved in every valuable part of the space chain.
That makes sense. You see SpaceX doing that with Starlink, right? That steady cash flow helps fund, Mars.
It does. And even Blue Origin with Project Kuiper, they started launching satellites on ULA rockets before New Glenn, their own rocket, was ready. That recurring revenue is vital.
Okay, so stable revenue is one big plus. What else does buying a German company do for Rocket Lab?
Well, this gets into European space politics a bit. Specifically, the European Space Agency, ESA.
Okay.
ESA has this policy called geographical return. Basically, countries contribute money to ESA.
Like membership fees.
Sort of, yeah. And ESA tries to award contracts back to industries in those countries, roughly proportional to how much they contributed.
So if Germany puts in a lot, German companies tend to get a good chunk of ESA work back.
Exactly. And Germany is a big contributor, around 20%. So by buying Mynaric, Rocket Lab essentially gets inside the circle for German-funded ESA projects.
That's clever. Gives them a foothold in the European market they might not otherwise have.
It's a significant advantage. Europe's space market is big behind the US, China, Russia, maybe, but substantial, and the talent pool is there.
And probably crucial since the Chinese market isn't really an option for them.
Right. Now, it's not all smooth sailing. Mynaric has had some problems.
No, like what?
Mostly production issues, apparently. Delivery delays, supply chain hiccups, leading to financial trouble.
Okay, that sounds risky.
It could be. But this is actually where Rocket Lab has a bit of a track record.
Yeah.
They've bought smaller tech companies before and have been pretty good at scaling up production.
Right, integrating them and making it work efficiently. So what are the biggest hurdles here with scaling Mynaric's laser tech? Is it just manufacturing?
Well, mass producing these optical terminals affordably is the big challenge. It's been a bottleneck for the whole constellation industry, really.
So can Rocket Lab crack that?
That seems to be the plan. They've done it before with other acquisitions, right? They've bought companies making separation systems, flight software, solar panels, composite structures.
6 acquisitions already, I think.
Sounds about right. And they managed to integrate those and ramp up production.
So the idea is apply that same playbook to Mynaric's laser terminals.
Exactly. Serve their own needs, yes, but also potentially sell these terminals to others building their own constellations. Governments wanting sovereign capabilities, for instance.
So they become both an operator and a supplier. Interesting.
Dual position. Now, the deal itself. The price is about $75 million upfront.
Okay.
Plus a potential extra $75 million later, an earnout based on Mynaric hitting revenue targets. Could be paid in stock or cash.
And when might this actually happen? You mentioned financial trouble.
Yeah, Mynaric is going through insolvency proceedings. So Rocket Lab expects the deal to close maybe mid to late this year.
And they get more than just the tech, right? People, facility.
Oh, yeah. They're setting up their first European HQ in Munich. They get Mynaric's team over 300 engineers and staff.
Wow.
Plus the production facilities, the IP, inventory, existing orders for these optical links. It's a significant package.
It really shows how they're moving beyond just being the small rocket guys.
Definitely. Strategic buys to get technology faster than developing it all in-house. It strengthens that vertical integration push.
Which, again, sounds a bit like the SpaceX model. Controlling more of the critical pieces makes the constellation plan seem much more logical.
It all fits together. Okay, so let's shift gears to Neutron, their next big thing in launch. What are the key specs?
Neutron. Okay, so medium lift class, payload around 13 tons to low Earth orbit.
Decent capacity and reusable.
Reusable first stage, yes. And the design is interesting. The second stage is actually inside the fairing.
Right, the hungry hippo fairing design. It looks almost fully reusable, even though technically the second stage isn't recovered.
Exactly. As for timing, maybe a first test flight by the end of this year. That seems ambitious.
It does. They've finished testing the composite structure, I believe, but engines and the launch site are still works in progress.
Have they got any customers lined up yet?
They do. Confirmed contract value is around $29 million, I think, and potential for over $100 million more from the U.S. Space Force.
Okay, so some traction. But they're not alone in this market segment, are they?
No, definitely not. Competition is heating up. You've got Relativity Space and their Terranar rocket.
Ah, Relativity. They were the 3D printing rocket company, right?
Yeah, that's them. Terranar is also medium lift, also reusable, planned first flight next year.
How does it stack up against Neutron?
Payload to LEO is pretty similar, maybe slightly better on paper for Terranar in some specs. It could definitely put pressure on Rocket Lab's order book.
So beyond the specs, what else makes Relativity a serious competitor here?
Well, Relativity made a really interesting move recently. They initially focused on that small 3D printed rocket Starship, which only flew suborbitally a couple of times.
Right, Terran 1. Didn't quite make it.
Yeah. But the big change was bringing in Eric Schmidt as their new CEO.
The Eric Schmidt, former Google CEO.
That's the one. He brings huge business experience, obviously, but also serious connections, especially in the defense world.
Ooh, that could be a major advantage for winning government contracts.
Potentially, yes. You contrast that with Beck. He advocated hard for the Mars sample return mission contract, but ultimately NASA canceled it, or at least the version Rocket Lab was involved in. Schmidt might have more sway in those circles.
It highlights different styles, doesn't it? Beck seems more, maybe, pragmatic, a market follower almost, but very steady and funny, actually.
Yeah, he has a distinct personality, whereas Musk at SpaceX is the ultimate market creator, the big visionary.
And Beck got knighted. Sir Peter Beck now.
Yeah.
For services to New Zealand's economy.
Huh, indeed. Space royalty. It's funny, his original dream was NASA, right?
Yeah, story goes he wanted to work there, didn't get in, so he just went and started his own space company in New Zealand, of all places.
Quite the journey. Amazing to see a major space player emerge from there.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together for you, the listener. What are the main things to take away from this Rocket Lab deep dive?
I'd say three key things. First, that unique end-to-end service model, it's a real differentiator for certain customers.
Okay.
Second, the Mynaric acquisition is huge. Potential for recurring revenue from a constellation, plus that vital access to the European market.
Right, strategically very important.
And third, Neutron. It moves them into the bigger launch market, but they face serious competition, especially from Relativity Space now with Schmidt at the helm.
That competitive angle is definitely something to watch. For me, the real aha moment is seeing Rocket Lab actively transforming itself.
How so?
They're clearly shifting from just being a launch company to becoming this much more vertically integrated space services company, building their own constellation. It follows that playbook we see from the bigger players.
And that recurring revenue stream you mentioned, it's just so crucial for long-term survival and growth in this business. It's incredibly capital intensive.
Totally. So hopefully understanding these moves gives you a better feel for the dynamics shaking out in commercial space right now.
Yeah, you can see the different strategies companies are using to carve out their piece of the pie.
So maybe a final thought for you to chew on. With all this growing competition in small launch, medium launch, and this race to build constellations, how is all this going to change the actual economics and accessibility of space in the next, say, 5 or 10 years?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's going to be fascinating to watch.